Welcome to TRADEREP. This is Short Hammer. It is the 22nd of August, 2019, and we are looking at the ES. And we're just looking at the ES before we go and look at the actual ticker we're going to be looking at, which is Microsoft. So looking at the ES, we closed at around 29.26.19 on the futures. So that was the close of the cash session. After the cash session closed, we saw this nice spike that took us up near 29.39. Everyone got excited, of course. What happened? What's the news? This is awesome. Market is ripping. We're going to be ripping tomorrow. Yeah, let's go to 3,000. But in the subsequent hours, we saw a pullback and we faded. And now we are below where we closed yesterday during the cash session. So how does that affect where we'll open? We'll see. But as of right now, we're below where we closed. Even though we had this nice run up, it's sold back off. And that continues a trend of sizable market movement after hours that sometimes just is eradicated before the open. But we'll see where we open if we happen to go back up. But right now we're downtrending on the futures based on the run up after the close of the cash session. Now this is Microsoft on the 5-minute, and we're looking at the 21st, what happened yesterday. So as we'll see in the pre-market, we had a nice spike that took us over this 137.80 supply demand zone, and we just climbed throughout the day, and right into the open we popped through the 138.78 and squeezed very quickly to the 139.47, pulled back, tried to find a little bit of support at that 138.78 supply demand line, bounced up a little bit, pulled back down to it, tried to get back over, pull back down through the bottom. And this was FOMC when the Fed didn't come out saying, hey, we're going to cut rates. And the market dipped, then it bought back up, tested this 138.78, pulled back again, held this pivot, pulled back through the 138.78 and was right kind of under it or right at it, right around the close of the cash session. Then after hours, with the push up in the market, we saw buying come in and Microsoft push up a little bit. So what are we looking for at the cash session, open of the cash session today? Well, the main intraday pivot is at 138.76. It looks like this yellow dash line. So we want to see, do we open below this or do we open above this? And we'll wait to see what the buyers and sellers say. If we're above this and volume comes in, what you want to do is try to take this to the next supply demand line, but watch the first pivot. So the first pivot you get to is a speed bump, and that's where if you're in either multiple shares or if you're in multiple contracts, you can look to start to scale out if you see any type of resistance. Now that's not just based on pivots, but that's also based on price levels. If you saw previous areas in the previous day where there was a pause in whether it was the move up or the move down, that's also a place you could look to begin to scale out of your position. Now, if you're below this 138.78 and also below this main intraday pivot and you're headed to the downside, the same thing. Look for areas right here, this 138.64, where there was a hitch. There may be a pullback here. Now, you wouldn't want to exit 10 cents below or 15 cents below your entry unless you're in a ton of shares or a ton of contracts. For some people, that's all they need. But if you just watch this area to see if the buying comes back in, but what you would like to see is a continued fade if you're playing a short position, because we're below here, we retested, and the selling is accelerating. We'll have to take this to the next supply demand line down here at 137.80. And you can look for exits at these pivot levels. So we'll see how we look tomorrow, but all I'm watching for is how the buyers and sellers interact around these supply demand lines. Where do we open? Do we push up through, or do we push down below? And if we're in the middle zone, I probably will not take a trade until we get to one of these supply demand lines, and then I see the reaction of the buyers and the sellers, just so I can see where are we going. Are we in an uptrending market? Are we in a downtrending market? Are we going to be in a range bound market? So I'll be watching this for tomorrow. The push and the failure of the futures to break out was really interesting, and I will be taking that into account as I take my intraday trades and intraday positions. And we'll see if the buying and the momentum is strong enough to push us back up and pop that top, or if we're going to be headed down. So waiting to see where we open as far as the cash session, and we'll take it from there. Remembering that we're watching, as far as Microsoft, we're watching the interactions near these supply demand lines. That's what we want to see. What's the interaction when we get there? And once we see the interaction, whether it's selling or buying, then we can look to say, okay, here we can take this to the next supply demand line, or exit at specific levels that we've seen previous buying and selling disagreement, where the buyers and sellers are battling at a specific level. We can look to exit our position or begin to scale up our position there.